Hi, I'm Mana Moini, and you're listening to the HUMANATY Podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Mana Moini. Today's topic is the power of purpose. Purpose is defined as the intention of achieving a long-term goal that has personal meaning and the ability to impact the world. Joining me for today's conversation is Tru Pettigrew. He's a community leader, author, public speaker, and a marketing executive for over 20 years. Currently, Tru serves as the Chief Impact Officer of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx. We're going to be talking about how to tap into your greatness, the importance of building bridges, and finally, the power of purpose. Hi, Tru.
Hi, Mana. How are you?
I am so good. I'm so excited that you're here today.
I'm excited to be here today. This has been a long time coming. I can't believe you kept blowing me off as much as I've been trying to get on your platform. But you know what? I'm not going to bring up old stuff. I'm just excited to be here now.
So I blew you off. Okay, we're rewriting the history a little bit. I am so excited to have you here because we're going to be talking about purpose.
Yes.
And I myself have been thinking about my purpose, struggling with my purpose, especially for the last couple of years. And one of the reasons for launching this podcast was I feel like this gives me a reason to, give back and just move further towards my purpose.
I love it. I love it.
So one of the things I wanted to start out by asking you is, you've had a very multifaceted career.
I have.
You're an author, public speaker, diversity executive, community leader. Which facet has been your favorite and helped you get closer to your purpose?
I think they all contribute to discovering your purpose, right? And so favorite, I don't know if I could just call out a favorite, although I absolutely love what I'm doing now as the Chief Impact Officer. But when I look back over the journey, right? And as you talk about purpose, I find it interesting that something that I've learned that I believe all of the experiences that you've had throughout the course of your journey, right, up until the point where you actually discover your purpose, is all practice and preparation in helping to shape you to be prepared to actually walk in your purpose when you finally decide to answer the call, right? Because if I go back to my degree is in electrical engineering, right? Have not done a thing in that. But with engineers, right, it's about problem solving, right? That's what engineers do, problem solving. So I graduated from college, decided, you know what? I'm gonna be a rapper, right? So
You did?
I did. I was a dope MC, Mana, don't sleep. I was a dope MC for about 3 years of my life. That is what I did with my life.
I did not know that.
I bought a one-way ticket to LA because when I was in college, me and my buddy, we MC'd and DJ'd all the parties. And I realized that people kind of took to it. They connected with it. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I'm pretty good at this. So I'm going to give this a shot because I loved that. I loved the stage. I loved the ability to impact people's lives in that way through music, through lyrical content. And I bought a one-way ticket to LA to decide to chase my microphone dreams. And so when I think about that, I bring that up because I went to LA to become a rapper, had some success, never got that multi-platinum album deal, right? But had some success. Then I happened into advertising, met someone who had an agency, started giving me gear to wear. I remember they were giving me Converse sneakers and Converse gear to wear for my shows because they saw I had a pretty good following. That turned into the folks from Converse creating a role for me at their ad agency because they saw how much influence I was having for the brand. Did that. Shortly after that, said, wow, I like this and I'm pretty good at it. Started my own boutique agency shortly after that. That went well, got acquired by a larger publicly traded agency. So I got my first taste of entrepreneurship. It's like, oh, okay, this works. This is a nice check, right? And then not shortly after that, I did that for like 20 years. And then I started True Access, my consultancy. So give you that context to say the gift never changed. The only thing that changed was the application of the gift. Because what does it take to be a good MC, a good rapper? The ability to use words to influence people's thoughts, opinions, feelings, behavior. What does it take to be a good advertiser? The ability to use words to influence people's thoughts, feelings, opinions, and behavior. What does it take to be a good public speaker? And that has segued into me being the chief diversity officer, me being the chief impact officer. So I've been fortunate enough to understand and trust my gifts relatively early on. So I've been applying the same gift throughout the entire journey. So I've been fortunate in that regard. What's changed, though, is combining that with passions and how I serve people beyond my own selfish desires.
Right. You talked about currently your role as the Chief Impact Officer of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx.
Yep.
Can you talk about what a Chief Impact Officer is and what your favorite part of the job is today?
Yep, absolutely. So the role of the Chief Impact Officer is to oversee community engagement, which is inclusive of social and or civic responsibility for the organization, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion. So kind of put it in those three buckets, right? Community engagement, social responsibility, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So overseeing that, developing the overarching strategic, direction for the organization and how we go about doing those things. So that's the role of a Chief Impact Officer. What I love most about it is the ability to impact people's lives. And it's not always easy. It's not always fun. It can be heavy at times when you're talking about helping people understand what their biases are, helping people to understand how to overcome those biases, right? And helping people to understand the importance of extending grace to someone that may have offended them based on their identity, even though the person didn't mean to offend them. Helping the organization identify, okay, what are the right community groups and audiences and nonprofits we want to come alongside and support with the work that they're doing, right? And support them with our time, our talent, and our treasure. Because there's so many people out here doing phenomenal work, but the resources are finite. You can't help everyone as much as you want to, so you have to identify who are the ones you're going to help through this cycle, right? And so it's challenging, but the absolute best part about this is the ability to positively impact people's lives.
I love that. And was there something specific about the Minneapolis community that drew you here?
Yes, absolutely. So, all right, so I'm gonna just be very, very transparent with you, right?
Okay.
Because this is just based on how I live my life and how I'm wired, right? So I am a man of faith, and a lot of my decisions are rooted and based in my faith, right? So, and not a lot of people know this. So you're already showing you're good at this. You're already bringing out things that I haven't shared with a lot of people. So do you want the real? I don't know if this,
I want the real.
I don't know if this is going to make for good content for the
I'm sure it will.
Right.
I'm sure it will.
So I had my own consultancy, right? True Access, still do that work, and things were going well. And one of the things that I had gained some notoriety for was the bridge building work that I was doing between law enforcement and the Black community. I started doing that work back in 2014 when Mike Brown got shot and killed in Ferguson. Started locally in North Carolina with the Cary Police Department, helping them to understand how to build bridges of trust and legitimacy with the Black community because of so much division and lack of trust and just kind of animus towards law enforcement from the Black community at that time, right? And we've seen a lot of that over the years. And so I started working with the Cary Police Department, developed some workshops for them to build those bridges of trust and legitimacy. Worked, they started telling other police departments. Before I knew it, I was doing it across the state of North Carolina and across the country. It had gained some notoriety, some media coverage. Then there was an executive at the Timberwolves who was familiar with the work that I was doing just through media channels, social media channels. And when George Floyd was murdered in May of 2020, he reached out and asked if I would come and do some workshops and some speaking engagements for the players to help them build or restore their thoughts and feelings towards the Minneapolis PD. So it started off with the work that I was doing as a consultant, as a speaker, as a workshop leader. I said, absolutely, right? Things went well, and they extended the offer for me to come in-house. Now, when they first asked me, I said no. I said, because life was good, business was good. It's just like, thank you, but I'm gonna continue doing the work that I do, but I really appreciate the offer. A couple of weeks later, they came back with another offer and said, hey, we'd really like for you to consider this. And so I shared it with my wife. I was like, babe, you know, they came back with another offer. What do you think? And she said, maybe you should pray about it. I was like, okay, all right. Which tells you I didn't pray about it the first time, right? I was like, all right. I prayed about it. And Mana, I tell you, the response I got was so clear, right? When you say this community in particular, the message that I got was, you're not going to Minneapolis for what you could get. Because the reason I said no is because I felt like I didn't need it. I was fine. You know, me and my family were doing well. But the message, the response was, okay, this isn't about you going to Minneapolis for what you can get. It's about going to Minneapolis for what you can contribute, because this is a city that's at a time in its existence where it could really use the gifts that you bring. And my response for being here was in response to that calling, for that time in life when the city was experiencing so much social and racial unrest. And my experience and my expertise had been developed to the point, because I answered the call, because I had clarity of purpose, that I could provide some value to the great work that a lot of other people were already doing.
You talk about being a bridge builder. Can you just explain what that means?
Absolutely. So when I think of a bridge, you've seen a bridge, I'm sure.
I have.
You've crossed bridges.
Correct.
Right? So you know what a bridge is, right? Hennepin Bridge, right around the corner, right down the street, which somewhere over there, right? And so when we think of a bridge, it serves as a resource, right, to connect things that are disconnected. That includes people, right? And it connects us across distances and terrain and plane that we otherwise would not be able to cross, whether it's because of the distance of waters, the rough terrain. And so the bridge is a resource that helps us to connect across distances that are seemingly impassable, right? And so as a bridge builder, I am helping people to connect across differences and distances that they otherwise will believe are impassable or even impossible, whether that's connecting across racial divides, gender divides, generational divides, cultural divides, or relational divides of any kind. And so building bridges is about providing people with the means and resources to connect across differences.
Are certain types of bridges, you know, racial, cultural, whatever it might be, harder to build than others?
I think so, and I think it's because it's about meeting the people where they are, right? And because you're building these bridges for people, and you need other people to participate in that process. So it might be easier to build a bridge across racial divides for people who have had lived experiences that have exposed them to diverse people, places, and things. And it will be more challenging to get people involved, to motivate people to participate in the bridge building process where their lived experiences have not allowed them access and exposure to diverse people, places, and things, and their thoughts and beliefs about people that are different than them are rooted in much more deep-seated false narratives and stereotypes and biases, right? And the same with generational differences, right? Building those, that's one of the bridges that I don't think people understand can be more challenging than others, is building bridges across the generations. That one can be.
Why do you think that is?
I think because with every generation, it brings a new era with new expressions and new and different expectations. And I think the biggest gap becomes the expectation gap, right? So you could probably have a white guy and a black guy, a white woman and a black woman from the same generation that would get along much better than a white millennial and a baby boomer millennial. You could have a white millennial and a black millennial, or a white Gen X and a black Gen X, right? That would probably get along better than that white millennial would with that baby boomer, or that white millennial with that white baby boomer, right? And I think it's because the expectations are so different because of how the different generational archetypes are formed and the mindsets that we have.
Wow. That leads me to ask you, do you think that anyone can be a bridge builder, or are certain people wired in a certain way better bridge builders?
I think we can all be bridge builders. I really do. I believe we all have the ability to be bridge builders. And it's about tapping into that willingness to be a bridge builder. See, we all have different and unique abilities. In that we think it's our unique and distinct abilities to do something that makes us better than someone else, that makes us more accomplished than someone else. And that plays a small role in it, again, in my opinion. But I think our greatness has less to do with our ability to do what other people can't do, and much more to do with our willingness to do what other people won't do. So I think we can all be bridge builders. It's a matter of, are we willing to meet people where they are? Not where we want them to be, not where we think they should be. Are we willing to meet people where they are? And then, as hokey as it sounds, after I'm willing to meet you where you are, am I willing to love you where you are? Now, I don't always love where people are. Trust me, I don't. But I know that I have to be willing to love them where they are in an effort to be the best bridge builder that I could be. And when I say love, I mean a decision, a choice, to be compassionate, to be patient, to be kind, to be understanding, right? Not necessarily a feeling that I have towards them, right? You know, right. I'm talking about that agape love, not that philios or that eros love, like that agape love.
Got it. You talked a little bit about building bridges specifically across racial divides. Mm-hmm. And I know you did a TEDx Minneapolis talk a few years back.
I did.
Where you talked about these barbershop rap sessions.
Yes.
Can you talk about that and tell the listeners what they're about?
No, absolutely. We've got one coming up April 15th right here in Minneapolis, Wilson's Barbershop and Images in North Minneapolis. Yep, Chief O'Hara is on board, so that's gonna be good. So a little shout out to Tito and Chief O'Hara on that one. So in 2014, I told you when Mike Brown got shot and killed in Ferguson, I was living in Cary, North Carolina, right? Home in Cary, North Carolina, me and my family, wife Tamika, son Austin. Austin was 2 years old at the time. Now, I had some bad experiences with law enforcement for a large portion of my life. Like a large portion of my adult life, I did not like or trust the police. And it's because growing up in Baltimore, I was on the receiving end of some excessive force by the police. Living in LA, I was on the receiving end of some excessive force by the police. And not because I was out there wilding out or committing crimes. I had a cop grab me. I'm coming out of a 7-Eleven in LA, grab me, throw me to the ground, press my face against the parking lot, put his gun to my head, and threatened to take my life. And it turned out that it was just a case of mistaken identity. They had received a call that a nearby 7-Eleven had just been robbed at gunpoint. These officers showed up at the wrong 7-Eleven. I'm walking out, they grabbed me, throw me to the ground. I got arrested. It was a whole deal. Wow. And so I carried that with me for a lot of years. And then even my experiences getting, excessive force on the receiving end of excessive force in Baltimore. So I coupled that with that experience in LA, and I just didn't trust police officers. So when Mike Brown got shot and killed in Ferguson in August of 2014, those feelings resurfaced, right? That what I would call unresolved and untreated trauma resurfaced. I had suppressed it. I'd navigated life just fine on my own. But now, Mana, I'm like, how am I gonna keep my son safe? I've got this 2-year-old black boy that I'm raising in this predominantly white, affluent neighborhood in North Carolina in the South. And I was like, wow, how am I going to protect him from all these things that I'm seeing? Because when the Mike Brown, similar to George Floyd, when the Mike Brown killing took place, it was all over social media, all over the media, and all we're hearing about was these unarmed black boys being shot and killed by the police. And I'm like, I don't want this to happen to my son. What no parent does, right? And I didn't know what to do to protect him from that, to be honest. I didn't know. And that is for any parent, right? To feel like you are helpless from protecting your child, that is not a good feeling, right? And I didn't know what to do. So I walked through the doors of the police department and shared my thoughts, shared my feelings, shared my fears and my concerns. And that led to a conversation with the then police chief, right? Tony Godwin is my man, 100 grand to this day. We talking about a 6'4" white male police chief from the South. I never thought that would be one of my closest friends on the planet, but that's my dude. And it led to a meeting and a conversation with him. And he challenged me, right? And he said, okay, what are some things you think you could do to help us better understand the black community, better connect with the black community so that we don't become one of these other agencies and departments that you're concerned about? And I remember being in the barbershop prior to that and all of us talking trash about the police, like myself included. So I knew how other members in the community felt about the police, right? And so I said, you know what? I'd like to invite you to the barbershop. I've gotten to know you. I've gotten to know your officers. I want the fellas at the shop to get to know the humans that I've gotten to know. Not just as officers. I've gotten to know you people on a human level. And I want the fellas at the shop to get to know you. And I want you to get to know them too. So I extended an invitation for him and some of his office to come to the barbershop just so we could chop it up, just have some dialogue, right? So we could sit down and rap. And we called it barbershop rap sessions. And it was really just dialogue, facilitated dialogue between the police and members of the black community so that we could get to know each other on a human level and break down those barriers of division and disconnect. And we started that in September of 2014. And that first one was challenging, but we made it through. And we agreed, you know what? We're gonna meet on the first Saturday of every month. We met on the first Saturday of every month for 9 years straight.
Wow.
And when I tell you it changed lives, saved lives, transformed lives, it was probably one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had the chance to be a part of.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Even
amazing.
during the pandemic, we just went virtual, right? But consistently, first Saturday of every month for 9 years straight.
Dialogue and communication is so important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So switching gears to a talk you did a few years ago called Tapping Into Your Greatness.
Oh, wow, look at somebody out here doing their homework.
You know, I had to do my research, you know.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Why is it important to tap into our greatness? And in this speech, you also talked about an acronym called GPS.
Yes. Well, okay.
Can
right.
you
get an A on your
bring
homework
everybody
assignment.
else up to speed?
I absolutely will. I think it's important to tap into our greatness because we all have greatness inside of us, and so many of us just don't tap into it, right? I believe we think, not everyone, right? There are people who've achieved great things, but I believe there's a lot of people who feel like greatness is this elusive thing that is reserved for a select few, right? But greatness is something that is available to all of us. It is something that exists inside of all of us, and it is our responsibility to tap into that greatness. Now, it is going to require us, as I said earlier, to be willing to do the things that other people won't do. And I think that's why people shy away from tapping into their greatness. It has less to do with your ability. Yeah, you can run faster, jump higher, sing better, swim deeper, but like, are you willing to do the things that other people won't do? That is how we are able to access our greatness, because greatness by definition is achievements and accomplishments above and beyond what is considered normal. So if I'm doing something that is above and beyond what is considered normal, most people aren't going to understand it right away because it's not normal, right?
Right.
And so it's going to come with some resistance. It's going to come with some pushback. It's going to come with some haters and naysayers. And you have to be willing to do the things that you know you've been called to do. That other person hasn't been called to do it, but it's the things that you've been gifted to do. And then that's when the GPS acronym comes into place. And this is something I had to learn the hard way, right? And I had to stumble through this. And when I really got to a point where I needed clarity of purpose in my own life, because the path that I was going down was self-destruction, headed for self-destruction, right?
Wow.
And I said, this can't be my life. I can't be focused solely on material things in life, right? Had a nice watch, wanted a nicer watch. Had a nice car, wanted a nicer car. Had a nice house, wanted a nicer house. I was like on this hamster wheel of trying to fill this void. I was trying to fill a void on the inside with things from the outside. But that void can only be filled from the inside, right? And that is really recognizing and discovering a true sense of purpose for why I'm here. And so I set off on this journey to discover my purpose, and then I kind of codified it in a way where it's a GPS, because your GPS guides you to where you want to go. And for me, we all have an internal GPS, and our internal GPS are our gifts, our passions, and our service. And so I realized, well, this is an area in which I am gifted, and I have to trust those gifts and own that, not from a place of arrogance, but recognizing that I have these gifts for a reason. And when I think about a gift, it's nothing I did. When you receive a gift, it's something that's been given to you. So it's no reason for you to brag or boast. You didn't do anything. It's just something that's been given to you. We all have gifts. And once I looked at it through that lens, I recognized, okay, I've been given this gift to give away, to share with others, to help impact other people's lives. So then I realized, all right, I want to share my gift. And if things got hard or things got challenging when I was sharing my gift with others, if I didn't really care about it, I'd quit. And if we don't really care about something that means something to us, we quit. And that's where the passion comes in. That's where the P comes in. So then I realized, all right, it needs to be the intersection point between my gifts and my passions, not just one or the other, right? I could be good at it, but if I don't care about it, when things get hard, I'm going to quit. I could care about it, love it, but if it's not my gift, I'm not going to be competent. I'm not going to be good at it. So I had to find that intersection point between my gifts and my passions. And then I was like, okay, now I'm rocking out. But the one piece that was still missing is I was doing it for myself. And then that's when the S kicked in. As long as it's about how we serve the greater good, then that's when you discover your purpose. And that's when everything starts to fall into place. Not that you're not going to have challenges, not that you're not going to have or have to deal with adversity, but when you are operating on purpose, you're following that GPS, your gifts, your passions, and serving a greater good bigger than yourself, you cannot, and I will say this with the utmost of confidence, you cannot be stopped. There's nothing anyone out here can do to stop me from what I am called to accomplish, because it's destined for me, and I'm following my GPS.
Wow. And you said something in that speech. You said, you have achieved greatness when your desire to give has exceeded your desire to receive.
Yeah, I believe that it's a heart condition, right? We have to get our hearts in the right place where our desire to give exceeds our expectation to receive. I think most of us do things based on what we can get. And I think we're just naturally, we're selfish beings, right? Think about when you're born, when a baby's born, we're catering to that baby's every need. All that baby will, yo, feed me, yo, change me, yo, take me out here, take me there. Like, they're just telling you, like, they're just pointing, just commanding and demanding and giving orders. Like, we're naturally selfish. We want everything to be catered to us. And I think society also teaches us to get as much as we can out of this world while we're here. And I will say right here, right now, I don't buy that. I think we've been misled and misguided. I think the real directive should be contribute as much as you can to this world before you leave. And I am convinced that as long as we are focused on how much we can give instead of expecting how much we will receive, we will always, always, always get more than we could ever possibly give.
Yeah, there's a level of fulfillment that comes from giving that you don't always receive otherwise. Have we found our purpose when we step into our greatness? Or is that an ongoing journey beyond that?
I think the greatness is an ongoing journey. I think once you discover your purpose, the discipline is to now stay on purpose. And we're human, we're fallible, so we're not going to, I don't believe we will operate on purpose 100% of the time. For me, my goal is to increase my on-purpose percentage more each day, right? And staying on purpose. Because there are times that I make decisions that I know it's not on purpose, but it's gonna feel good. It's gonna satisfy my ego. It might get me some recognition, you know, or whatever the case may be, right? It's just human. So we're not perfect, but I am intentional about asking myself when I'm about to do something, is this on purpose or not? And if it's on purpose, then I should do it. If it's not on purpose, I shouldn't do it. I'm not 100% every day. I have days when I am much better with staying on purpose than not, but I can measure that because I know what my purpose is. If we don't even know what it is, we're just putting up a sail and letting the wind blow. We're just being reactive to whatever is going on throughout the course of our day. And any given day, we're all pulled in 1,000 different directions based on all the dimensions of life that we all share. We all have our family wants, we have our faith wants, we have our intellectual wants, we have our physical wants, we have our career wants, we have our material wants, we have our social wants. Those are the same 7 life dimensions every human being shares. And each one of them, one dimension, just family, just one life dimension, could pull you in 100 different directions. And you haven't even touched on the other 6.
Right.
But with clarity of purpose, they don't compete with each other anymore. They're this seamlessly integrated circuit that feeds each other because you know why you're doing what you're doing.
Having a purpose makes you act on purpose.
Absolutely.
How important is the right tribe, of the right support system in helping you tap into your greatness?
Oh, we all need the right people around. None of us can do this alone. And we're not even expected to do it alone. We need the right tribe of people around us to help us along this journey at every phase of the journey, and the phases repeat. I believe that our purpose journey involves these 3 phases or these 3 seasons, right? Vision, adversity, and victory. And they cycle. You have to have a vision. You have to have a dream. And most of us have this dream, have this vision. Not everyone pursues it, right? Because they're not tapping into that greatness because they don't want to deal with the resistance and the pushback and the adversity that's going to come from doing something above and beyond what's considered normal. So we have to have that dream and that vision, right? That's the first phase, the first season. And we need people to help us to breathe life into that dream, to help us to breathe life into that vision, to give us the affirmation and the encouragement. When we talk about courage in an interesting way, in my opinion, right? People say just be courageous. And the true understanding, I think if we have a true understanding of courage, it typically comes from those external sources of the people around us versus just conjuring something up from within. Those forces that are around us to say, oh, wow, if I fail, I know there's going to be people around me to pick me up. If I fall, I know there's going to be people around me to lift me up. I know there's going to be people around me. That's when we have courage, knowing that the people around us are going to be there to support us. So we need the right people around us, even in that dream, in that vision phase. And then once we start the journey, we are going to experience adversity. It is going to happen. I don't care what it is you're doing. You're going to come up against some challenges. We definitely need people, the right people around us in that adversity season, when we're experiencing adversity, that's gonna tell us, no, you can do it. I believe in you. I trust in you, right? And that they will help remind you of who you are, right? And what you're capable of. And then when we get to the victory season, we need people around us to keep us humble, to make sure we're not feeling ourselves too much, to make sure we're not thinking more highly of ourselves than we ought, right? And to make us understand that, okay, the reason you started doing this is for this purpose. Don't lose sight of that. So I believe it's important to surround yourself by people who want more for you than they want from you.
So in that same vein, how do you balance listening to others versus listening to your gut? Because I think most of us second guess what our gut tells us, right? And we end up listening to all the folks around us. Like, how do you balance listening to your gut versus the people around you who mean well, but sometimes you just got to go with your gut?
And I think that's another benefit of having clarity of purpose, right? Because once you have clarity of purpose, you can ask yourself that question. Even though I know Mana means well, even though I know so-and-so means well, right? Is it on purpose? And when we have clarity of purpose, it gives us and everyone around us what I call a VIP experience, right? It gives where you're going more value. It gives what you're doing more impact, and it gives how you do it more precision, right? That VIP experience. And the people around you can sense that too. And the more time they experience you operating on purpose, they'll get a sense of whether or not that's something that's on purpose for you or not. Now, they won't always be 100% accurate because it's not their calling, but I think that discernment is something that you will develop over time the more you are operating on purpose.
Because it's almost like you have that compass,
right,
to gauge whether it makes sense for you. I
Yes.
love that. What keeps people from stepping into their greatness? Is it fear?
I think it's fear. I think fear is the biggest culprit, right? Fear and confusion, just not knowing. I think we are responding and reacting to those immediate needs and demands on our life. We're so busy focusing on the immediate demands on our lives across all of those different life dimensions. We never take the time to think about what is most important to us in each of those life dimensions. We don't know what, in our family life dimension, what matters most to you in that dimension. In your career life dimension, what matters most to you? Your intellectual and your physical and your faith and your social, what matters most to you? And here's the thing, when you identify the thing that matters most to you in any of those life dimensions, then you can keep your eyes on the prize in pursuit of that thing. And the beauty is, as long as you're focused on that thing that matters most to you, all the other things that pop up, they get addressed along the way. But if you don't have that priority need identified, then you can suffer what I call death by distraction. It's just like, oh, I need to do this, and you go off course to do this thing. But if you would have just stayed on course to achieve the thing that's at the top of that priority list, all those other needs and wants get addressed along the way. But because you don't know that is the top priority want for you in that life dimension, you don't even know to keep your eyes on the prize with that specific thing.
I'm curious, being a community leader,
Mm-hmm.
in your opinion, what have you seen over the past couple of years coming out of the pandemic? Do you feel like people have more of a purpose because of what we've been through? Do you feel like people in general feel more lost? Like, what is it that you've noticed just anecdotally?
Yeah, I think we've recognized a lot of the inequities and disparities that exist in our society. I think that pandemic revealed a lot to us when it comes to disparities and inequities. And then we saw the level of commitment, and then combined with the George Floyd murder, right? We saw the level of commitment that a lot of individuals, a lot of foundations, a lot of corporations made to help address the inequities and disparities. And now that we are 4 years removed, I find it interesting that there is now this attack on an effort to achieve more diversity, equity, and inclusion in our society, in our corporations, in our foundations and institutions, out of this, what I would consider a false narrative about what DEI is designed to do. I mean, just based on the definition of each of the words, if you are someone that seeks to do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion, I am curious as to how are you even defining diversity, equity, and inclusion? Diversity is the state of being different. That exists. That's something none of us can do away with. That is just the natural design of life. It's the state of being different. It's not relegated to race, gender, sexuality, none of those things. Difference exists. And as humans, it's incumbent upon us to understand how to help those around us to best leverage, coexist, and identify ideas and solutions based on those differences so that we can create a world that's going to benefit the greater good of all of us. If we're not taking the time to help people understand how to build bridges across those differences, we're doing everyone a disservice. The diversity exists. We'll wake up tomorrow, there'll be diversity in the world. So to do away with diversity, fundamentally, I don't even understand how that's a possibility. Equity, by definition, is fair and impartial treatment. So we want to do away with that. We want to eliminate fair and impartial treatment. We want to eliminate the commitment to ensure people have what they need to succeed based on where they are on their journey. And then inclusion is making sure our words and our actions and behaviors ensure everyone feels a sense of belonging. So we want to do away with that. We want people to feel alienated. We want people to feel marginalized. We want people to feel devalued. So when I really look at the definitions of each of those words, it's confusing to me as to how we could say as a society we want to do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think it's a very dangerous game that's being played with crafting this false narrative around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we've seen from a historical standpoint how much damage is done when false narratives are perpetuated.
And I think too, it sounds like what you're saying is coming out of the pandemic, there's more confusion around purpose. Mm-hmm. And so it leads society to have these broad, judgments or sentiments about certain things like DEI that, really we need to take a step back and reevaluate.
Yeah. And I think fear, you mentioned before, is a big driver and determinant of that.
Right. You have lived such a amazing life, dealt with so many different types of people, built so many bridges. Knowing what you know today, what would you tell little Tru?
Oh, my young prince. Actually, I talk to my young prince daily and try and plant seeds of faith, patience, and obedience in him, right? Hope, and to help him to understand how to discover his purpose and how to be the best human he can be. So what I do tell him is two things that I share with him. One is a daily affirmation. I started doing a daily affirmation with my young prince, with Austin, when I think he maybe was 4 years old, to help him recognize how valuable he is, how worthy he is, because the world may often try and tell him that he's not what he's not, that he's not good enough, he's not worthy, he's not valuable. And so it was important for me to make sure I instilled those affirmations in him early. So the one thing is I give him a daily affirmation, I affirm him. And the other thing that I share with him is to remember to add value in other people's lives. And it goes back to the point we made earlier about making sure that your desire to give exceeds your expectation to receive, because once you do that, you'll get more than you ever bargained for. You will. It's like the whole principle of sowing and reaping, right? I think we've gotten to a place where we view that as a negative. It's like karma. If something bad happens to someone, what do they say? That's what you get. You reap what you sow. Versus looking at it through the lens of the promise is that you reap what you sow. So if I sow an apple seed, right, I'm going to reap generations of apples from that apple tree, right? So it's not just you reap what you sow, you always reap more than you sow. And so I'm encouraging him to focus on making sure he adds value, always adds value to the lives of the people around him, and that he makes sure that his desire to give exceeds his expectation to receive.
Is there anything you wish your younger self would have known?
Yeah, trust my gifts. Yeah, I have them
love
for a
that.
reason. Just trust my gifts, knowing that they're going to open doors and make room. Gifts will just open doors that I didn't even know existed. And if I had started that process earlier, had the confidence earlier to just trust my gifts and know that I have them for a reason, and knowing the doors and opportunities that would open for me, I think that's what I would have told my younger self.
How do we gain that confidence? Because I think we all struggle with that.
I think it's incumbent upon the older generation, once we've learned those lessons, to start sharing those lessons with the younger generation at an early age. I think the responsibility is for each generation to be that source of confidence for the generations behind them.
Is there anything you want to share with the listeners around, if someone out there is thinking, I want to be a bridge builder, how do I get started? How do I get the confidence to initiate a type of conversation? Like, what would be your advice, or what would you say to those people?
Yeah, one, we can all be bridge builders. We all have the ability to be a bridge builder. I just want to encourage you to exercise the willingness to do so. And one of the things that I've learned on this journey is to not allow your primary source of information about people that don't look like you to only come from people that look like you. I think we do that way too often, right? As a Black person, if I allow all the information that I've ever heard or received or understood about white people to only come from other Black people, it's not a credible information source. If you're out there, if you're a white person, and everything that you've ever studied, learned, read, or believed about Black people, if that information has only come from other white people, I would encourage you to check the source. Get to know people for yourself on a human level. Let's stop allowing our primary source our primary information source about people that don't look like us to only come from other people that look like us. Diversify your social circle. Diversify your professional circle, and get to know people on a human level.
I love that. So lastly, I want to ask you what we've been asking all of our guests on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a story of kindness, whether it's happened to you or that you've seen around you, that just left a mark in your life, made an impact, changed your life?
Oh, absolutely. Chief Tony Godwin, the chief that I met from the town of Cary, former police chief of the town of Cary. When I walked through his doors in August of 2014, there was a lot of animus in my heart towards law enforcement. And he represented the identity of what I had experienced a lot of negativity from, white male police. And he was a white male police chief from the South. And so I walked through those doors with a lot of animus in my heart. And I shared my frustrations, I shared my concerns, and I got to imagine that I was even accusatory in my tone to some degree. He listened, he heard me, he didn't interrupt me. When I was done, he said, "Tru, I'm sorry those things happened to you. How can I help? What can I do to change the way you feel about law enforcement as a profession, and particularly this department, which I love?" I didn't know how to respond to that. He responded with such kindness, empathy, and compassion that changed the trajectory of my life.
Wow. Made you feel seen.
And heard.
And heard.
Yep.
That's beautiful. Thank you for just being so honest and real today. And I think you have such a broad spectrum of experiences, and it's so wonderful for us to have this conversation and for people to hear it straight from you. Thank you so much for being here.
No, well,
it's truly an honor to have you.
Thank you for sharing your platform with me and for all that you're doing to help spread more kindness throughout the world.
I want to leave the listeners with this. Finding our purpose is a journey. We need to understand what's important to us and what fulfills us. And we need to have the right community of support around us. I want to challenge us to elevate each other to tap into our greatness. Thank you to the Canopy by Hilton Hotels in the Minneapolis Mill District for hosting us today. And thank you for tuning in and being a part of the Humanity community. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.